This is part 2 of the Superion series. I already looked at Powerglide, who is a fantastic figure. I don't think he's an Aerialbot at all. But technically he will go in the combined mode, so I started with him. I also did Viper. Again, a good figure. And I took a sidetrack and did Cyclonus Galvatronus just because... who cares? So I said, hey, how are we going to continue with the Superion series? Well, you know what? Let's get the other controversial figure out of the way, and it's this guy, Alpha Bravo. I think he looks great. So stick around and let's see if he lives up to the legacy left behind by the one and the only Slingshot. Yeah, that's right. In the intro, I mentioned Slingshot because this guy is a replacement for him in the IDW universe. Slingshot was destroyed. This guy came on board as a new member of the Aerialbots and took over Slingshot's role. Basically, you know, honestly, I'm going to give the paint apps for this guy a 10. We don't have a G1 comparison really to do, but I see the homage to Slingshot, and I like the way the colors play off. Orange is a different color. We don't see a whole lot. There's not too much black. There's not too much white. There's not too much gray. I love the fact that the arm cannons or missiles have their own color, and it's a nice gloss sheen on it. It's beautiful. I love the head sculpt. Very aviator-ish to me. So I think that looks phenomenal. And I like the blue stripe to break things up on the side. So as a standalone figure, Alpha Bravo, so far he's a 10. Posability, playability, the head, you know, he can look way up. He can look down a little bit, but nothing worth talking about. His head goes around 360. He can look down more if you want to use the combination joint, you know, and kind of break the sculpt a little bit there in his stomach. The arms, you know, they go around 360. They go out to the side like this, no problem. There's a nice bicep swivel. The elbow bend is a nice 90 degrees. There's no articulation in the hands. There is a waist swivel, and if you... honestly, I like putting the helicopter blades up like this and kind of locking them in. Some people don't, but you know, it's your call. As far as the legs go, they go all the way out. They can go back, but it's a little difficult there now because I have a lot of kibble back there, but they can go back. Nice 90-degree bend at the knee. There is a swivel in the thigh. The toes, you know, can pivot down, I guess. These legs are really kind of a throwback to Astro Train. If you saw that review, you know, I already mentioned that. And if you want to know about size comparisons, I've used this guy now for several videos. You could see him compared to everyone from Grapple to Metroplex to Trax to Powerglide and Viper. He's been kind of my deluxe go-to now for a little while for a kind of a modern, you know, a modern version. His gun can peg in on this side, or on this side there's a port over here as well. If you don't want it in his hand, of course it can go in his hand. It's only a, you know, 5mm peg, and this is the gun here. It, you know, it's a nice looking gun. If you're into their weapons, whatever. I'm fine with their guns being their guns. The only spot to plug his hand, foot, gun piece into in robot mode, unless you want it in his hand, is the back of his leg from what I can see. And yeah, it gives him some extra chunk. It limits the posability there, but it does add to his stability. So you know, that's something. As far as this piece goes, you know, if you have it like this, it's a gun. If you flip out the toe, it's a foot, and you know, it's a foot. And if you can flip out the fingers, which is not always the easiest, and you bend all of this down, there you go, it's a hand. You know, it is what it is. These pieces are a bit obtrusive for all of the Combiner Wars figures, but I see the necessity of them, obviously. I guess it's cool that they tried to make them be a one-stop shop for hand, foot, and gun. And you know, again, if you wanted to, you could. There you go, there, and I guess you could do this and have them all armed up, no problem. But you know, taking them out of it, posability, playability for this guy, I really like the mold. I really do dig the mold. I'm giving the posability, playability, again, I'm going to give it a 10. There's, you know, outside of wrist articulation, I guess, there's nothing more you could really want, and I don't really care about the wrist articulation. So far, Alpha Bravo is a great figure. Now we go into transformation, and we have a whole bunch of transformations to do with this guy. This is robot mode, obviously, and when he's a helicopter, I mean, his blades spin, he's a helicopter. When he's a leg, he's a leg, and when he's an arm, he's an arm. So we will start out, let's put him in arm mode first, just because. You flip the head back. Well, I guess technically you should turn the head around and flip it in to expose the arm piece, and we're going to have him be this arm because he's replacing Slingshot, and Slingshot was this arm. These, I tend to just, you're supposed to put them down straight, but I find that it hinders the elbow, so I tend to just put them back like this, and they hold just fine. I don't really think there's a locking point here, but I'm fine with the way they look. His legs will peg together. You can turn his waist either way. I turn it this way so that you have the advantage of a deeper elbow bend by using the hip joints and the knee joints. And after you have him like this, you really just take his, you know, hand-foot gun piece, you open out the fingers, and you will turn it like this, turn the thumb this way, and the thumb can go, like, I mean, these can be, you know, a left or a right hand. And we peg that up, and there you go. That's him as an arm of Superion. You know, it looks good. And I'll even say this, unless you get the retail version, you're not going to get this guy. There is a G2 box set out now where Power Glide is mostly a red body, or sorry, a gray body with red thighs and arms, and I think he has a red face. The arm in that box set is a version of Slingshot / Quick Slinger, I guess because of trademark reasons. So if you didn't get this guy when he first came out with mass retail and you see him kicking around, he's worth getting. Whether you use him as part of Superion or not, he's a fun figure. We will put all of that back down. From robot mode into helicopter mode. We'll do helicopter mode next, and then we'll do foot mode last. So how do we do helicopter mode? Well, you're going to open the legs up, and you're going to spin him at the waist so that his thighs are now, or sorry, his calves are now, you know, on the back of his body. And there's a hinge in here. This hinge, see if I can show it better on this side. This hinge hinges out like this, and then you kind of collapse it on itself. And when you bring it up, there is a peg here that goes into a hole way up right here. And when you collapse this on itself, the peg will go into the hole, and you close up the bottom of the leg. You do the same thing on the other side, where you know, get that hinge out, you collapse it on itself, you put the peg into the hole that's, you put the peg into the hole that's way up here, and you close the leg on itself. You unpeg these pieces of the front of the helicopter, and you bring them forward. And when you bring them forward, I guess I should point this out before I do it. When you bring them forward, there's a peg right here, there's a hole over here, and those two pieces will peg together, and then his toes flip down on top. If you had this up top locking the rotors in place, you can now push that down, and the rotors come out, and you straighten them out, and there you go. That leaves his arms swinging freely, and they will, again, there's a peg here on the side, there's a hole on the inside of the arm here. You peg that on over. You take this one and you peg it on over, and you might say, well, hey, what about his head? A lot of people will just end up going like this, to be honest with you, and hiding it there like that. Otherwise, there's no real, there's no real place to store the head per se. Now, that being said, I guess the closest you get, while some people do turn it like that, here, I'll even turn it like that. You unpeg the, I forgot about this, you unpeg the tail fin, you bring that down, and when you bring it down, there are two slots up here that go into two pegs right here, like so. And the gun, if you want a place to store that, and you're like, hey, where do I store the gun? Again, you have a peg right here, or sorry, a hole there and a hole there. You have a handle on the gun, peg it in on the side. It does not obstruct the helicopter rotors from turning. And that leaves the hand-foot piece. And a lot of people don't do this, and I don't know why. The hand-foot piece right here, why don't you just stick it underneath, and there you go. Landing pontoons, I guess. I love the look of the helicopter. I do. I think it's fantastic. I think it looks great. It's beautiful. It's a win. And last but not least, to put this guy in foot mode, if you're so inclined to have him in that mode, you just take the tail fin again, and you bring it down. And when you bring it down, now you have two holes up here that will go into these two pegs here, like so. You can turn this to the side that way if you want, or turn to the side that way if you want. I tend to just leave it forward. You unpeg that enough to bring these up and lock them in if you want them locked in. You don't have to, but especially for a leg, I think it's a good idea. You flip his toes back up again. You split these around again and put them back up here. Split this around again and put it back up there. And now you see that we have a slot down there, and we take our foot piece and we put it in. That is Alpha Bravo as a foot. That's not how I'm going to have him. So, what's my take on this guy in the end? Is he good? Is he bad? What is he? As a standalone figure, Alpha Bravo's great. He really is. As a limb, he's effective as a leg. He's effective as an arm. Is he what I remember as an Aerialbot? No, he's not. Does that automatically disqualify him as, oh, he's garbage? No, it doesn't. In the end, I would say that Alpha Bravo, just as a standalone figure, let's forget the fact that he combines, just as a cool transforming robot that you could have in your hands, I would say get him. I would say get him because he's fun. His transformation is fun. He's a helicopter that's a little bit different that you don't see all the time. And he's well worth it. He's 9 or 10. He's 9 or 10. I'm going to leave him in this mode for when we do the combined mode. And with that being said, why don't we move on to the official Aerialbots next with part number 3 as we plug along forward with the Superion series. Thanks for watching.